Hi everyone, welcome back to Solo Tech Lab. Today we're opening up the Dell OptiPlex 7050 Micro. I'll be showing you exactly what's inside, the different specs available, and your best path for upgrades. So let's dive in. Here's the 7050 Micro. Taking a look at the connectivity, the front panel gives you quick access to a USB 3.1 Type A port and a USB 3.1 Type C port. You also have two audio jacks, one for headphone or speaker and another one for a mic. Moving to the back, we have four more USB 3 ports, a gigabit Ethernet jack, one display port, and one HDMI. You will also notice this knockout slot here. This is for an optional port. Since mine is empty, it just shows the metal plate, but depending on the original configuration, this could house an extra display port, HDMI, VGA, or even a serial port. It also has a screw-on Wi-Fi antenna slot if yours has a Wi-Fi card installed. If you're buying a one with a Wi-Fi card, then make sure that it has the antenna as well, because without the antenna, the Wi-Fi is not going to work that great. To open the system, you just need to unscrew this thumb screw in the back. Then slide the cover towards the front and the cover comes off. As you can see, it's a very compact system. You can see the hard drive and the fan cover here. In order to remove the 2.5-inch drive caddy, just press these two blue tabs and slide the assembly towards the front of the case to unlatch it. Once it's free, you can lift the whole tray out. This caddy supports any standard 2.5-inch SATA SSD or a mechanical hard drive. Like most Dell computers, this one also has a toolless caddy, so it comes off pretty easy. As you can see, there are no screws, there are just these four pins that hold the drive in place. Moving on, here is the Wi-Fi / Bluetooth card. One thing to watch out for, not all 7050 micros come with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth pre-installed. While you can add it later, I highly recommend buying a unit that already has it. Installing the card is easy since it's a M.2 slot card, but routing the internal antenna cables can be tricky. One cable has to be threaded to the back of the chassis for an external antenna, while the other tucks inside the front of the case. It's definitely doable, but it's a lot more work than just plugging in a card. This also has an NVMe M.2 SSD slot, which is pretty badass. As you can see, it supports a 42mm or a 88mm SSD card. This is the onboard graphics, and this is the CMOS battery. Something cool to point out is, so far, we didn't even need a screwdriver. We're going to move on to remove the fan cover. Do we need a screwdriver for that? No, absolutely not. Just press these two plastic clips and the whole assembly flips up and out of the way. Just be careful with the fan cable that's still connected to the motherboard. You can definitely remove them easily if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. Removing the fan cover gives us access to the CPU heatsink and the RAM slots. It has two RAM slots, but this system came with just one. To remove the RAM, just pull the two metal clips on the sides outward. The stick will pop off at an angle, and you can slide it right out. This system uses DDR4 SODIMMs, which is standard laptop RAMs. This system has a single 8 GB stick. You can easily upgrade it, but we will talk about upgrade paths in more detail later on in the video. I'm gonna start removing the heatsink in order to get access to the CPU. These units came with 7th gen Intel T version CPUs, which run at lower 35 watts to use less power and to stay cooler in such small case. But technically, the 7050 Micro supports any 6th or 7th gen Intel CPU. With the heatsink off, we can see that this thermal paste is very old and rock hard solid. In order to remove the actual CPU from its socket, just press down on the tension lever, push it to the side to unlatch it, and carefully lift the processor straight out of the socket. To remove the old thermal paste, I used a card first and then used some isopropyl alcohol to fully clean the CPU and the heatsink. Here's the CPU after the cleaning. As you can see, it's an Intel Core i5 7500T. At this point, if you want to take the motherboard out, you just need to unscrew the screws. But I'm not going to do that and start reassembling the system back. To put the CPU back in, just align the small golden triangle on the corner of the chip with the triangle marked on the socket. It should drop in place with zero resistance, and then you can just lock the tension lever back down. It's completely normal to feel some resistance when trying to lock the lever. If you're putting your system back together for use, make sure to apply a fresh pea-sized drop of thermal paste to the CPU to keep those temperatures in check. Since I have other plans for this system, and we'll be taking it apart again soon, I'm skipping the paste for now. But don't skip this step in your own build. You can literally use any brand. These systems don't usually get that hot. Okay, let's move on to the RAM. When reinstalling the RAM, pay attention to the notch on the gold pin and align it with the corresponding tab in the slot. Once it's lined up, slide it in at an angle and press down until the metal clips click into place, securing the stick. This system uses DDR4 SODIMM memory, which is the same type used in laptops. While Dell officially supports up to 32 GB, many users have successfully upgraded these to a total of 64 GB with no major issues. When screwing the heatsink back in, make sure to tighten them in a crisscross pattern rather than doing one side at a time. Something I forgot to mention about the RAM is that the RAM speed actually depends on which CPU generation you have installed. If you're running a 7th gen processor, it will run at 2400 MHz, while 6th gen systems are capped at 2133. If you install faster RAM, the system will simply downclock it to match those speeds, so you don't need to overspend on high speed kits. Okay, let's put the fan cover back. Just watch the fan and speaker cables. Make sure they're tucked away properly so they don't get pinched or caught under the shroud. I'm not sure if I mentioned this during the disassembly. The other cable is just the internal speaker cable. Okay, moving on to putting the SSD back in the caddy or whatever drive yours has. Hopefully, it's an SSD and not a mechanical hard drive. To put the SSD back in, just align the side holes with the plastic pins and snap it into place. The caddy is designed to flex slightly. With the drive secured, just slide the caddy back into the slot and press it firmly until it clicks. This connects the SSD directly to the motherboard and locks everything into place. Now that we're almost finished, I wanted to show you how to remove the front bezel, just in case you want to clear out any dust buildup. There are three plastic tabs on the side. Just gently release those and the cover swings right off. It's a good idea to check this area periodically as dust tends to get trapped behind the mesh and can block the airway to your fan. This unit was quite dusty when I opened it the first time. And now just put the cover back on the same way you took it off and tighten the thumb screw. I'm gonna put the antenna back. And this is how you disassemble a Dell OptiPlex 7050 Micro. Now that everything is back together, let's talk about upgrades. Let's start with the CPU. If you're buying one of these units, look for one with i7 CPU, which is going to be i7 7700T for best possible performance. You might find some rare versions of this machine that have standard non-T version 65-watt CPUs. Technically, the socket on the motherboard will accept standard desktop CPUs, but there's some major caveats. If you try to go that route, first you need to upgrade your power adapter. These systems usually come with 65 watts adapter, which isn't enough for a standard chip. Dell does sell a 130 watt adapter for the Micro series as well. So if you decide to use a non-T CPU, you'll definitely need to pick one of those up. Also, you might find that you need to update your BIOS to the latest version to ensure the motherboard even recognizes the newer or higher power chip. But personally, I don't recommend going down this path. This system is so tiny and the heatsink is so small that a standard CPU is just going to heat throttle almost immediately. And you won't actually benefit from the full potential of that faster chip. So to recap, stick with the T model CPUs. So the best CPU is going to be the i7. But if you already have one of these with an i5 CPU, is it worth switching the CPU to an i7? Well, it really depends on the price. The i7 has 8 threads compared to i5's 4. So on paper, it might give you like 25% boost in multi-thread performance. That means the system will feel a bit more capable if you're doing heavy multitasking or running a home server. But if you have one with an i3, I will highly recommend upgrading to an i7 as the performance difference is going to be very noticeable since the i3 has only 2 cores compared to the 4 cores of the i7 or i5. Next up is the RAM. For some of you, this is going to be the most noticeable upgrade for day-to-day snappiness. It's best that you use 2 sticks to enable the dual channel mode, which effectively doubles your memory bandwidth. Basically, anything lower than 8 is just unbearable. 16 is pretty good, and anything over 32 is just overkill for 95% of people. I believe the sweet spot for these systems is 16 gigabyte of RAM. Finally, let's talk storage. If your system has only a mechanical hard drive, your most important upgrade, regardless of any other components, would be to get rid of that. It is the biggest bottleneck in any modern PC. The OptiPlex 7050 Micro actually gives you the best of both worlds with dual drive setup. First, you have the M.2 NVMe slot. I recommend putting a fast NVMe SSD here for your boot drive, something like a 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte stick. This will make your PC boot in seconds and feels incredibly snappy. But the coolest part is the 2.5-inch SATA bay. Depending on how much storage you need, you can go with a high capacity SSD here. You can easily find 2 or 4 terabyte drives that fit right in. So if you are planning this out, depending on your goal, you can either use an NVMe or a 2.5-inch SSD or both. Just remember that your system should not boot from a mechanical hard drive. Now, before we wrap this up, I have to mention the mad scientist route. Some people push these OptiPlex micros to the absolute limit by adding a dedicated graphic card. But there's a catch. It requires an external power supply and a riser cable sneaking out of the chassis. While it's a fun project, you've basically built a science experiment that costs almost more than the PC itself. We're sticking to internal upgrades today because, let's be honest, if it needs a life support system on your disk, is it even a micro anymore? Here is my final take on these upgrades. Look for one with an i7 or i5. Have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. Boot from an SSD. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to ask any question or share your opinion about these systems in the comments.